Needham held its special town meeting on Sunday, October 4th in the Memorial Field parking lot. Like the annual town meeting back in June, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, town meeting members were wearing masks and sitting 9 feet apart from each other. Although they approved all the articles on the warrant, some passed after fervent discussions, including a pair of articles that requested grants to help restore 2 historic churches and the citizens petition that calls for a study on systemic racism in Needham. Here's Municipal producer Yuxiao with more details.
At Sunday's special town meeting, Article 11 and Article 12, seeking grants from the Community Preservation Fund for the restoration of 2 historic churches, sparked a debate over whether the funding should be spent on private organizations, especially faith-based institutions.
I'm worried that we're conflating history and religion here in a way that advantages a certain set of people.
Article 11 asked for $90,200 to help restore the front porch of First Baptist Church. Article 12 requests $50,000 to help restore the steeple of First Parish Church. Erik Bailey from Precinct A rose to support the articles, citing the historical roles of the 2 churches in Needham.
The meeting house of First Parish is so named because this very body met there. That's the epitome of Needham history. And I hope that you can see how important these 2 churches are to the history of our town. If you look at First Baptist, if you picture a New England church in your head and you draw it, you've just drawn First Baptist.
The budgets of the 2 projects shows that the grant for First Baptist Church is less than 1/3 of the total cost, and the grant for First Parish Church is about half of the total cost. Supporters of the articles saw the grants as being used to help preserve the architecture legacy in town rather than to support certain religious groups. Select Board Chair Handel spoke to support the articles and said he was speaking in his role as a citizen and town meeting members.
Both of these buildings need to be preserved. The lion's share of the money in both of these projects is not being sought here. Only a modest participation by the Community Preservation Committee, which is a committee that has a bucket for historic preservation. We lose a significant portion of our historic legacy every year. You see it on every street.
But opponents were concerned over the precedent set by the articles and saw it as a, quote, slippery slope. Some members said they would donate their own money to the 2 churches for the restoration works, but refused to direct taxpayers' money to the projects.
If one allows this church, then what about that church or that other faith renovation?
Where every few years there's going to be another request for money because the parish has shrunk so dramatically that they can't finance the building, and I don't think the Needham taxpayers should be required to do so.
Every year, Needham residents pay a 2% surcharge on property taxes to raise capital for the Community Preservation Fund. The money from the fund can be used to invest in open space, historic preservation, affordable housing, and recreation. Even though the Community Preservation Act allows private organizations to receive grants from the pool, the Finance Committee believes such allocation should only be made in, quote, narrowly defined circumstances. In the YouTube presentation made prior to town meeting, Finance Committee member Thomas Jacob explained why the committee had voted to not recommend both articles.
Town meeting has in the past approved funding to private organizations. These include seed money for the community farm, an organization that provides fresh produce to the Needham Community Council food pantry and sits on town land. Monies to the Needham History Center and Museum, which sits on town land, for restoration and organization of historical documents. And to the Charles River Center, an organization which supplements governmental services to replace windows and improve energy efficiency in existing housing units and provide housing construction funds. The First Baptist Church, while worthy of preserving and historic in its connection to the town, is a private entity on private land and does not meet the criteria outlined above.
Eventually, both articles passed with close votes. Article 17 was a citizens' petition filed by Equal Justice in Needham, a grassroots organization advocating for racial justice, calls for, quote, a study of the effects of systemic racism in Needham, particularly in regard to the core issues of racial profiling, public safety, and housing. The Select Board made a motion to refer the article to the board for them to report back to the 2021 annual town meeting or sooner. In July, the town launched its own Needham Unite Against Racism initiative, or NUARI, to study and combat racism in Needham. In early September, a multiracial NUARI working group was formed to receive community feedback and recommend actions to town. On Sunday, after a town meeting member asked for clarity on the motion to refer, Select Board member Marianne Cooley rose to explain.
What I commit to you is that the non-binding resolution will be delivered to all NUARI members to be part of their discussion. I expect NUARI's portfolio to be broader than the bullet points that are listed in this article.
Some town meeting members were concerned over the wording of some of the whereas clauses in Article 17 and thus supported the motion.
There are whereases in here that I'm very uncomfortable with town meeting accepting blankly, so that we can all say, town meeting says our cops are all prejudiced. Our cops are this. And it's not. I'd like to see this referred back so the selectmen can continue working to resolve the issues that they can resolve within the town, working with the citizenry groups of this town.
But some town meeting members saw the motion as a way to buy the Select Board time. Paul Alpert, a town meeting member and a member of the planning board, said he found those whereas clauses, quote, carefully worded, and people should focus on the resolution part.
I feel that a motion to refer, if passed, is a distinction without a difference, but it buys the Select Board time, 6 months or a year, to tinker with this language and come back to us with a tinkered resolution, just so that the actual performance of what's being requested here gets delayed by 6 months or a year. I don't think that's necessary.
The motion to refer failed and Article 17 passed. For the Needham Channel News, I'm Yuxiao Yuan.